The crisp autumn air smelled of rain and fallen leaves as Florence Turner stood at the mailbox, her trembling fingers clutching the airmail envelope. The blue and red borders had become so familiar over the past 11 months that she could recognize them from across the post office. She tucked the letter into her coat pocket, savoring the moment before reading it. Yorke's words were precious, each one had to last until the next letter arrived. The small Connecticut town of Millfield hadn't changed much since Pearl Harbor. The war felt distant here, despite the Victory Gardens and scrap metal drives. Main Street still boasted its white church steeple, Henley's general store still displayed the same faded awning, and Mrs. Patterson still gossiped outside the pharmacy. Only the Gold Star flags hanging in windows and the absence of young men marked the difference. Florence walked quickly, her sensible shoes clicking against the sidewalk. At 23, she'd grown used to the routine: work at the telephone exchange, volunteer at the Red Cross, wait for letters. The war had taught her patience, though never acceptance. Inside her family's modest two-story home, Florence hung her coat and headed to the kitchen. Her mother was listening to the radio while preparing dinner with their meager rations. "Anything from Yorke?" her mother asked, not looking up from the potatoes she was peeling. "Yes." Florence patted her pocket. "I'll read it upstairs before dinner." Her mother nodded. They'd established this ritual long ago. Florence would read Yorke's letters privately first, then share selected portions with her family. Some words were meant for her alone. In her bedroom, Florence sat at the small desk by the window. The view overlooked the maple tree where Yorke had kissed her for the first time 5 years ago. They'd been childhood friends, then high school sweethearts. Their wedding had been planned for June 1942, but Pearl Harbor changed everything. Yorke enlisted before Christmas 1941. She opened the letter carefully, preserving the envelope. October the 15th, 1944 ***, my dearest Florence ***, the censors will likely blacken half this letter, but I'll risk their ink to tell you I'm somewhere in France. The leaves are turning here too, though I hardly notice them anymore. What I wouldn't give to see the maples on your street, their red glory like a sunset caught in branches. ***, the fellows in my unit received packages yesterday. Henderson got cookies that survived remarkably well, and Palmer received 3 pairs of socks his mother knitted. I got your photograph. I've placed it inside my helmet. The boys tease me, but I don't mind. Your smile watches over me. ***, the fighting has been fierce. I won't burden you with details that wouldn't make it past the censors anyway. Know that I am well, and our advance continues. The French people leave their homes and stand along the roads as we pass, offering what little they have, apples, sometimes wine. Their gratitude humbles me. This morning, Captain Morley gathered us for a briefing. There's talk of being home by Christmas. Nothing certain, but the possibility exists. Imagine that, flow Christmas together after 3 long years. ***, so I'm making you a promise, I'll do everything in my power to be home by Christmas. Picture it, snow falling on Millfield, carols at church, your mother's cranberry sauce. And us, together at last. I dream of it nightly. ***, until then, I carry your heart with mine. ***, all my love. Yorke. Florence pressed the letter to her chest. Christmas. Less than 2 months away. She allowed herself to imagine it, Yorke in their parlor, helping to trim the tree, his uniform exchanged for civilian clothes. The fantasy warmed her like a physical presence. She tucked the letter into the cedar box where she kept all his correspondence. 3 years of longing, compressed into ink on paper. She would write back tonight, after dinner, and tell him she'd be waiting under the mistletoe. The Western Front had hardened Yorke Winters in ways he never imagined possible. At 25, he'd seen enough death to last several lifetimes. His 4th Infantry Division had fought through Normandy, liberated Paris, and now pushed toward Germany through the dense Hurtgen forest. The promised Christmas homecoming seemed increasingly unlikely as November's cold rain turned to sleet. In their foxhole, Yorke and Private Danny Reynolds huddled against the biting wind. Reynolds was 19, a replacement who'd joined them after the bloodbath in the hedgerows. The kid was from Arizona and hadn't stopped shivering since October. "Got a picture of your girl, Winters?" Reynolds asked, his teeth chattering. Yorke reached inside his jacket and extracted the photograph of Florence. It was worn at the edges from constant handling, but her smile remained radiant, dark hair pinned back, eyes bright with promise. "She's a looker," Reynolds whistled. "How long you been together?" "Since high school. Going on 8 years now." Yorke carefully returned the photo to its place near his heart. "We're getting married as soon as I get back." "Which is when?" "Christmas. I promised her." Reynolds nodded, not questioning the promise despite their current situation, deep in enemy territory, surrounded by dense forest where German artillery could strike at any moment. "What about you?" Yorke asked. "Got someone waiting." "Now." "Never stayed in one place long enough." Reynolds pulled his blanket tighter. "My dad worked the railroads. Always moving." Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Garrett crawling toward them, keeping low. "Winters, command needs a scout. German movement detected half a mile east. Captain wants eyes on it." Yorke nodded, checking his rifle. "Just me." "Take Reynolds. Be back before dawn. Observation only, don't engage unless absolutely necessary." 20 minutes later, Yorke and Reynolds were moving silently through the forest. The ground was slick with mud and rotting leaves. Visibility was poor, with fog clinging to the trees like ghostly shrouds. "Stay close," Yorke whispered. "Germans have patrols everywhere." They advanced carefully, using hand signals when necessary. The forest was eerily quiet, no birds, no small animals. Just the occasional distant rumble of artillery and the soft drip of moisture from the branches above. After an hour, they reached a small ridge overlooking a narrow road. Below, German trucks and troops were moving under cover of darkness, a substantial force heading west. "That's a counterattack forming," Yorke murmured. "We need to report this immediately." Reynolds nodded, scribbling coordinates in a small notebook. The return journey should have been straightforward. They had the information, now they just needed to deliver it. But war rarely followed plans. The first shot came from their left, a sharp crack that sent them diving for cover. German patrol, at least 4 men. They'd been spotted. "Run!" Yorke hissed. "Split up. Meet at the fallen oak we passed." Reynolds darted right while Yorke went left, drawing fire away from the younger soldier. He sprinted through the trees, bullets splintering bark around him. One grazed his arm, a hot line of pain that he barely registered. When the shooting stopped, Yorke paused, catching his breath behind a large tree. The forest had gone silent again. He waited 5 minutes before carefully making his way to the fallen oak. Reynolds wasn't there. Yorke waited another 10 minutes, scanning the darkness. He was about to search for the private when he heard Laborde breathing. Reynolds stumbled into view, clutching his side. "Got me," he gasped, collapsing. Yorke caught him, lowering him gently. Blood soaked the kid's jacket, too much blood. "Easy, Reynolds. I'll get you back." "The coordinates," Reynolds whispered, pressing his notebook into Yorke's hand. "They need to know." Yorke tucked the notebook away, then tore strips from his undershirt to make a bandage. The wound was bad, a through and through that had likely punctured a lung. Reynolds needed a medical station, not field dressings. "I'm carrying you out," Yorke said, preparing to lift him. "No." Reynolds gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Too slow. You'll miss the window. That counterattack is coming at dawn." "I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are, Sergeant." Reynolds coughed, blood speckling his lips. "That's an order." "You can't give me orders, Private," Yorke attempted a smile. "Then it's a favor. Get that intel back. Save the others." Reynolds' eyes were clear despite his pain. "And get home to that girl of yours by Christmas." Yorke felt the weight of the moment, the impossible choice between duty and humanity. Reynolds seemed to read his thoughts. "If it were you," he whispered, "I'd want someone to get word to my folks." "Promise me you'll write them." "I promise," Yorke said, his throat tight. "Now go." "I'll be right behind you." They both knew it was a lie. With a final squeeze to Reynolds' shoulder, Yorke moved out, the coordinates burning a hole in his pocket and guilt burning a hole in his heart. The intelligence Yorke delivered saved hundreds of American lives. The German counterattack met prepared defenses instead of surprised troops. Captain Morley put Yorke in for a Silver Star, but medals meant nothing when weighed against Reynolds' sacrifice. A week later, the fighting intensified. The 4th Infantry pushed deeper into the Hurtgen Forest, a grinding battle against entrenched German positions, artillery, and the unforgiving winter. On December 1st, Yorke wrote to Florence, "My dearest Florence, winter has arrived here in full force. The cold seeps into everything, clothes, boots, rifles. But your letters keep me warm. I read them at night, when the darkness seems endless, and find myself transported back to Millfield. I promised to be home by Christmas, and I intend to keep that promise. The fighting is difficult, but we advance daily. Each step brings me closer to you. I lost someone recently, a young man under my command. He had no sweetheart waiting, no future mapped out like ours. His sacrifice reminds me how precious our time will be when I return. Keep the mistletoe ready. I'll be there to meet you beneath it. All my love. Yorke. He sealed the letter knowing the promise was increasingly hollow. The Allied advance had slowed to a crawl. Christmas furloughs were being cancelled as the Germans gathered strength for what intelligence suggested would be a major winter offensive. But Florence needed hope. They all did. The telegram arrived on December 18, 1944. Florence had spent the morning hanging holly and stringing popcorn garlands with her younger sister, Ruth. Their father had managed to find a small pine tree, and it stood in the corner of the parlor, waiting for Christmas Eve decorating. Florence had saved her sugar ration for weeks to make Yorke's favorite molasses cookies. When the knock came, Florence was standing on a chair, hanging mistletoe in the doorway. Through the frosted glass of the front door, she could see the Western Union messenger's silhouette, a boy on a bicycle, probably Tommy Wilson from 3 streets over. But Tommy didn't deliver telegrams. Florence's mother opened the door. The official messenger, a middle-aged man Florence didn't recognize, removed his hat. "Mrs. Turner? I have a telegram for Florence Turner." The room went still. Ruth's popcorn string slipped from her fingers, scattering white kernels across the rug. Florence descended from the chair with mechanical precision, her body moving while her mind froze. "I'm Florence Turner." The man handed her the yellow envelope, his eyes kind but averted. "I'm very sorry, miss." Florence stared at the envelope but couldn't bring herself to open it. Her mother stepped forward, gently taking it from her trembling hands. "Shall I?" she asked softly. Florence nodded. Her mother opened the telegram and read it silently first, her face crumpling. Then, voice shaking, she read aloud, "The Secretary of War desires to express his deep regret that Sergeant Yorke Winters was killed in action on the 16th of December in Belgium." Letter follows. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Florence heard her sister crying, felt her mother's arms around her, but everything seemed distant, as if happening to someone else. The only clear thought in her mind was that Yorke had broken his promise. He wouldn't be home for Christmas. He wouldn't be home ever again. The details arrived in January, in a letter from Captain Morley. The German Ardennes offensive, later to be called the Battle of the Bulge, had begun on December 16. Yorke's unit was among the first hit. He had led his squad in a defensive action that allowed 3 wounded men to reach safety before a mortar strike took his life instantly. He had died without suffering. The captain enclosed a small package containing Yorke's personal effects, his dog tags, a pocket watch that had belonged to his grandfather, and the photograph of Florence, somehow undamaged despite everything. Florence moved through the winter like a ghost. Friends visited with casseroles and condolences. The minister spoke of sacrifice and God's plan. None of it touched the frozen core of her grief. She continued working at the telephone exchange, connecting calls with mechanical efficiency. She stopped volunteering at the Red Cross. She couldn't bear to roll bandages knowing they would never have saved Yorke. In February, a letter arrived from Arizona, from Reynolds' parents, thanking her for her condolence letter. Florence stared at it in confusion. She had sent no such letter. Inside was a second envelope, creased and stained, addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds in a handwriting she knew as well as her own. Yorke's final letter, fulfilling his promise to his fallen comrade. Florence read it with trembling hands. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, my name is Sergeant Yorke Winters. I served with your son Danny in the 4th Infantry Division. By the time you receive this, you will have already received the official notification of his death. What the War Department cannot tell you is what a fine soldier and better man your son was. Danny saved my life and the lives of countless others through his bravery on the night of November 28th. He was mortally wounded while gathering intelligence crucial to our operations. With his last breaths, he insisted I leave him to deliver this information rather than risk both our lives trying to carry him to safety. Before I left, he made me promise to write to you. He wanted you to know he wasn't afraid at the end. His thoughts were of you and of his duty to his fellow soldiers. I also want you to know he spoke often of his childhood traveling the railroads with your family. Those memories brought him comfort in difficult times. Danny died with honor, but more importantly, he lived with kindness and courage that inspired everyone around him. I will carry his memory with me always. If you ever find yourselves in Connecticut after the war, my family and I would be honored to meet you. Danny connected our lives forever. With deepest sympathy and respect. Yorke Winters. Florence held the letter to her heart, tears flowing freely for the first time since the telegram arrived. Here was Yorke's voice, his compassion evident in every line. Even facing his own mortality, he had fulfilled his promise to a friend. It struck her then that Yorke had kept his most important promises, not the one about coming home by Christmas, which had always been beyond his control, but the ones that defined him, to serve with honor, to care for those under his command, to remember what truly mattered. Spring came to Millfield. The war in Europe ended in May 1945, and by September, the entire global conflict had finally ceased. Young men returned to the town, changed by what they had seen and done. Life gradually resumed its rhythms. Florence received an unexpected visitor in October, Captain Morley, now discharged and traveling east to visit the families of men lost under his command. They sat in her parents' parlor, the same room where the telegram had arrived nearly a year before. Morley was younger than she had imagined, perhaps 30, with premature gray at his temples. I wanted to tell you personally what an exceptional soldier your fiancé was, Morley said. The men called him Steady Yorke. In the chaos of combat, he never lost his focus or his humanity. Florence nodded, grateful but unable to find words. He spoke of you often, Morley continued. Showed your picture to anyone who'd look. He smiled faintly. He was determined to keep his Christmas promise. I know, Florence said softly. Morley reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope. This was found among his effects afterward. It wasn't included in what was sent to you because it had fallen behind his footlocker. I wanted to deliver it personally. Florence accepted the envelope with shaking hands. Her name was written in Yorke's familiar script. Would you like me to step out? Morley asked. No, please stay. Florence didn't want to be alone when she read Yorke's final words. She opened the envelope carefully. The letter was dated December 15, 1944, the day before he died. My beloved Florence, tomorrow we move to counter what intelligence suggests will be a major German offensive. The weather is brutal, snow and fog that chills to the bone. But I find myself thinking of Christmas snow in Millfield, how it transforms the ordinary into something magical. I promised to be home by Christmas, and until yesterday, I believed I could keep that promise. Now, I must be honest, it seems unlikely. The fighting ahead will be fierce, and furloughs have been suspended. Yet know this, whether I am physically beside you on Christmas morning or not, my heart will be with you. If distance separates us this December, it is temporary. This war cannot last forever, and when it ends, no force on earth will keep me from returning to you. If the worst should happen, and I pray it does not, remember that the love we shared is not diminished by death. It continues, like light from distant stars that shines long after the star itself is gone. Look for me in the first snow of winter, in the cardinal that visits your garden, in the maple tree where we first kissed. I will be there, loving you still. Keep faith, my dearest. If not this Christmas, then the next. Or the one after that. Eventually, all promises are kept, though sometimes not in the ways we expect. Forever yours. Yorke. Florence folded the letter carefully. Outside, the maple tree blazed red against the October sky. Soon its leaves would fall, winter would come, and Christmas would arrive again, her second without him. Thank you for bringing this, she said to Morley. It means more than I can express. After the captain left, Florence walked to the maple tree and placed her hand against its rough bark. The wind stirred the branches, sending a shower of crimson leaves spiraling around her. I understand now, she whispered. Some promises transcend circumstance. She looked up through the canopy of leaves to the clear blue sky beyond. Somewhere in that vastness, Yorke remained, not in the way she had hoped, but present nonetheless in every memory, in every life he had touched, in every promise he had kept. It would have to be enough.